Hey guys, Dr. Holly here from ChiroNumbers.com. This is week 2 in the series of my startup story. Okay, so this week I am telling you all about my timeline. Now, I wasn't trying to be dramatic last week when I, sent out my newsletter, my email, and I said, opening a business or opening a practice in less than 6 weeks. Okay, so I want to give you a little bit more context on that timeline and exactly what happened. I've got my timer set, so we are going to talk about this for just the next 5 minutes. I moved. We made the decision to move from one state to the other, from Tennessee to North Carolina, I believe in January of this year of 2022. So started doing the research at that time on finding out what licensure was going to be like and things like that. So started that process. Probably didn't submit everything myself until about February. I know every state's different, so getting into the details really isn't important, but essentially I was able to submit everything, request all of my transcripts. So I've only ever been licensed in Tennessee for the past 11 years. So I had to go back in and do all my transcripts and everything like that, I believe from undergrad and chiropractic school, and submit that to the board in North Carolina. They had a fingerprinting process, so I had to have them send me the forms. I could just go to a local police department and get fingerprinted, so you do background checks, things like that. Of course, there was some cost associated with, a couple of those things. And then I got their study guide, stuff like that, to study rules and laws and take the jurisprudence exam. So start to finish, like I said, I think I started that some point in February. I got my license on April 7th. So, it does have to go through an approval process. Similarly, in Tennessee, I believe their board of examiners meets like quarterly. So sometimes you kind of have to wait depending on where that approval stamp comes in. But for the most part, I would say it was pretty painless and got my license pretty quick. So actually got my license like the first week that we moved here. So we actually moved, our family location and everything like that at the end of March. And then I got my license on either April 7th or 8th of this year. So at that point, I was really trying to make the decision on, was a company that we had in Tennessee. So we had a PLLC. My husband and I had a PLLC in Tennessee. If we were going to either keep that one open and register it as a foreign entity in North Carolina, or if we were going to open up and just do a whole new entity in North Carolina. Okay, so kind of ran the pros and cons on that and decided right now we actually still have both open because we were doing business in Tennessee at the beginning of the year. And obviously I wanted to start doing business in North Carolina this year as well. So I went ahead and started the process to open a new PLLC. So that's a professional limited liability company. Now, in both states, you do have to prove that you are a professional, you have professional licensure. So, but in North Carolina, I had the additional step of you have to actually ask the board for permission for what you're naming your company. So had to submit all of that paperwork to the board, wait for them to process that and send it back to me. And then I could go on and submit all that stuff to the state. So what's in a name? I kind of wanted to think about my name for a little while, and it sort of came to me actually that first week in April. Everything kind of came together and I got the idea for the name, which is the name of my business is Azalea Chiropractic and Acupuncture. I named it that because for our local area, azaleas are kind of a big deal. Wilmington apparently is the home to the Azalea Festival. And azaleas were in bloom that week. The festival was that week. It just all kind of came together and it fit for me. Now, of course, I'm a woman in practice. I treat women, a lot of women in practice. I love florals. I love flowers. I love nature. So it all just kind of fit for me. So I would very much encourage you, if you're thinking about naming a practice, be authentic with yourself, okay? I feel like with our first practice, we named it based on who we were trying to attract. And sometimes it just kind of felt like it didn't fit. It was also a mouthful. It was called Active Family and Sports Chiropractic. That's a lot to say on the phone when you go to answer the phone. It's also a lot to write out on a check if somebody's trying to pay you money, okay? So I would encourage you to definitely take some time to think about your name and know that you got to stick with it. Another avenue that you can do multiple business names. Again, for North Carolina, you have to get approval for those business names, but you can also have like a main registered LLC or PLLC that maybe is just your like doctor professional name if that's approved. And then you can do business as other branded names. Okay. And I'm not advocating that you do that a lot, but it is just an option. Okay. So I did all that. I I sat on my name for a little while. I probably had it for about a month before I decided to send my paperwork into the board, got that back in a couple weeks. And then again, I was still just really making sure that this was the avenue I was going to go down before I submitted my paperwork to the state. I started that process, I think in June, kind of hit some hiccups. There was something on their state website that wasn't working. And so I reached out to a couple people. And of course, like I was way stressing myself out more than I needed to about this whole process. Because it's like as soon as I picked up the phone and called somebody, I got the answer I needed and that was done and I submitted it all like that afternoon. So definitely I know this can be very overwhelming, it can be intimidating, to be doing these official stuff and you're sending stuff to the Secretary of State and everything like that. Like just get over it, take a deep breath. If there's an error, you can fix it. And I'll tell you about my error next week because we're already at 5 minutes. All right. Have a good week, everybody.